The marine world has had many ghost ship anecdotes. While some are scary, some are really befuddling. The mystery of the Mary Celeste unequivocally comes into the latter cadre and is a topic worth thinking aloud. In 1872, Captain Benjamin Briggs, his family, and a small trusted team set forth on a journey from New York to Genoa on a merchant ship called the Mary Celeste. After 1 month, the boat was found untied off the banks of Portugal, with not a soul on board. The mystery of the Mary Celeste has captivated and bewildered from that point onward, with various contending hypotheses on exactly what befell Briggs and the others on board. The Mary Celeste is the ideal guide to the speculations of ghost ships described and told by many. So what really happened to the people on board this ship? Well, get your popcorn ready. This will be an intriguing journey loaded up with secrets and lost spirits. The Mary Celeste was originally named the Amazon when it was built at the shipyards in Spencer Island in Nova Scotia, Canada in 1861. It was dispatched around the same time as the start of the American Civil War. The brigantine Mary Celeste was 31 meters long, 7.6 meters wide, and displaced 282 tons of water. However, since her launch, she has always been under the influence of some evil power for some strange reason. During her first decade of operations, she was involved in several misadventures and passed through many changes of ownership. The lives of 3 captains were lost, which further added to the negative standing acquired by this vessel. However, in spite of the notoriety garnered, the vessel did manage to have successful voyages, which outweighed its success rate. In October of 1872, Mary Celeste was made ready on a berth in New York's East River for a voyage to Genoa, Italy. The captain of the boat was Benjamin Briggs, age 37. Briggs's 30-year-old spouse Sarah and his 2-year-old kid were on board. Also present were 7 crew members, making an aggregate total of 10 people. Captain Briggs was an extremely experienced and capable sailor, and captained 5 boats to this point in his career. He, at the end of the day, was an owner of many ships and had spent a large portion of his time on this earth on the ocean, sailing. Mary Celeste left New York City on November 7, 1872, carrying a load of 1,700 barrels of raw commercial alcohol, esteemed at some $35,000 in value, with full insurance. On December 5, 1872, the lookout of the merchant brigantine GRATIA, heading towards the Strait of Gibraltar, alerted the captain, David Morehouse, to the presence of another sailing ship. The boat was cruising in a weird way. The mainsail had been folded, and one of the topmasts tore by the breeze. The boat was in the pains of the breeze, as though there was nobody on board to direct her. Morehouse recognized the ship as the Mary Celeste, which was captained by his old buddy, Benjamin Spooner Briggs, with whom he had eaten in New York shortly before the two of them set forth towards the Mediterranean with their individual vessels. Worried about his partner, the chief of the GRATIA dispatched a raft and endowed his first mate Oliver Duveau with the job of finding out what was going on inside the boat, and if necessary, help the sailors. Boarding the Mary Celeste was difficult for the men in the rowboat. Many calls were made to the team of the Mary Celeste. No one seemed to pull in the sails, and the breeze kept pushing the boat onward. Presumably, Duveau and his men thought that an epidemic had weakened the sailors, but when they were finally able to climb on board the Mary Celeste, they found themselves in front of a real surprise. There was absolutely nobody on the ship. The conditions in which the men from the GRATIA observed the brigantine added to the secret. The boat was in chaos, despite the fact that there were no indications of brutality on board. The clock and the compass were both broken. The hold was filled with nearly a meter of water because the pumps had not been activated. However, for the rest, nothing was absent. Even the food and water supplies were completely intact. The logbook was in its place, and the last section noted how the boat had recently gotten through a terrible tempest. Indeed, even the sailors' belongings and their savings were in their places. The main things that were missing, other than the people, was the sextant, the reports with respect to the freight, and a little raft. So what had befallen the Mary Celeste? Through the decades, a lack of hard facts has only spurred speculation as to what might have taken place. Theories have ranged from mutiny to pirates. Here are some speculations and theories behind the mystery of the Mary Celeste. Number 1. Crazed mutiny. Initial checks of the ship observed peculiar imprints that might have been brought about by an axe, alongside hints of what appeared to be blood. The head legal officer driving the request focused on the possibility that individuals from the group had become savagely drunk on the ship's freight of liquor, and afterwards slaughtered every other person on board prior to withdrawing on the boat's only raft. But it was subsequently uncovered that the bloodstains weren't bloodstains at all. The imprints were because of normal wear and tear, and the liquor was industrial grade, not fit for human consumption. Plus, why on earth would the homicidal sailors set to depart the ship when they face almost certain doom on a small lifeboat? Number 2. Criminal conspiracy. A rogues gallery of suspects must have been implicated in the case of the Mary Celeste over the years. Could North American privateers have assaulted the ship and killed the team? Maybe. However, the ship hadn't been plundered. What about the team of the GRATIA, the ship which had really found the vacant Mary Celeste? Maybe they, in actuality, had assaulted the Mary Celeste, and afterward professed to have thought that she is afloat, so that they could acquire cash from the rescue. Much more interesting is the possibility that it was an inside job, with Captain Briggs and his family faking their demise to guarantee the rescue cash through a co-plotter. Number 3. Alien abduction. There's no getting away from it. Many people still have a sneaking suspicion that aliens suddenly turned up and whisked away the crew. This is presumably because of the preconceived notions that the Mary Celeste was left in a frightfully unblemished condition, with the last log section composed presently before it was found, and half-eaten food spread out on the tables. This is really a legend. The last log had been made a few days before the rescue. There was no food spread out, and the actual boat was tussled, waterlogged, and, in the expressions of the court report, a complete wet wreck. There's likewise the little matter of the missing raft, which is a sign the group intentionally deserted the craft. Number 4. Natural disaster. Could the sea itself have been behind the mystery? One chance is that the Mary Celeste fell foul of a waterspout, which is fundamentally a twister adrift, or maybe an unexpected fierce sea quake, both of which might have caused shallow harm and some waterlogging, maybe making the group think the boat was going to sink, leading them to then make the fatal mistake of clambering into a small life raft. Number 5. Alcohol explosion. Maybe the most persuasive theory identifies the ship's cargo of industrial-grade alcohol. Regardless of whether turbulence or porous barrels, noxious alcoholic fumes may have escaped, either causing a small explosion or making the crew think an explosion was imminent. Briggs might have then provided the request to briefly leave the ship, with everybody climbing into the raft to cruise behind the Mary Celeste until the risk had passed. The rope attaching the boat to the ship may have then come undone, leaving them to bob uselessly as the Mary Celeste sailed onward, abandoning them to the awful immensity of the sea. Number 6. The GRATIA crew. Another theory is that the group on the ship GRATIA that rescued the unwanted Mary Celeste murdered everyone on board, and then afterward created the tale of the mysterious ghost ship. In any case, this appears to be far-fetched. There was no indication of any battle on the Mary Celeste, and furthermore, the GRATIA left several weeks after the Mary Celeste, and could not have possibly caught up and found it. Likewise, Morehouse, the skipper of the GRATIA, was an old buddy of Briggs. Number 7. Protection scam. Some think that the whole episode was presumably arranged out to make a phony insurance claim. However, that would have required Morehouse of the GRATIA to plot with Briggs to get it going. While this is not entirely inconceivable, the ship Mary Celeste was not claimed by either one of those men. The owner was James Winchester. Additionally, the protection esteem was very humble, so such a planned and staged act for such a modest amount of money seems rather far-fetched. Many theories have sprouted over the years, some interesting, others absurd, but there is yet no explanation that substantiates the Mary Celeste's abandonment with facts and evidence. For what reason was the ship deserted? It was totally fit for sailing, as there was half a year's worth of food and water on board. The group's possessions were stowed away neatly. A captain would only abandon ship in the most dire of circumstances, and the conditions which it was found showed no signs of being critical. All we know is, this mystery remains a mystery to this day.